Ali Khamenei. For 37 years, Ali Khamenei had ruled Iran with an iron grip and a very, very deep power over Middle East. He was a master of the long game. He'd watched US presidents come and go like seasonal fashion trends, while he remained the ultimate authority. But by 2026, the long game faced crises. Tensions with Israel and the West hadn't just boiled over, the pot had exploded. Khamenei was no fool. He knew he was a target. He lived in a state of constant motion and strategies, staying in secure residential compounds tucked away in the heart of Tehran. He was with his family and passing beautiful without fear. He was wrong. The strike didn't come from a guy in a suit or a guard with a grudge. It came from the sky. On a Tuesday morning, a precision-guided missile struck his compound with such surgical accuracy that the buildings next door barely had their windows cracked. But inside, it was over in a heartbeat. Khamenei was killed instantly. But here's the breaking part. He wasn't alone. His son-in-law and his 7-year-old granddaughter were there. His wife was pulled from the rubble with broken bones and a world that had vanished. It didn't matter that he had the Revolutionary Guard or path of Hitler. It didn't matter that he had 37 years of experience. In the age of 2026, you're not a supreme leader. You're just a set of coordinates on a screen. John F. Kennedy, Dallas, November 22, 1963. The air was warm, security was tight, and John F. Kennedy was feeling himself. He was the young, handsome face of a new America. He was in Texas to do what politicians do, shake hands and look like a guy you'd want to grab a beer with. And because he wanted to look accessible, he made a choice that modern Secret Service agents now see in their nightmares. He chose the 1961 Lincoln Continental, the open-top version. Now, here's what went wrong. You're in charge of protecting the most powerful man in the world during the Cold War. You've got Russian spies, angry cartels, and political radicals everywhere. And your boss says, hey, let's drive through a city of skyscrapers in a car that has the structural integrity of a shoebox. At 12:30 p.m., the motorcade turned into Dealey Plaza. Jackie Kennedy is in her iconic pink suit, waving. The governor's wife leans over and says, Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you. Seconds later, the first shot rang out. Most people thought it was a firecracker. People literally kept cheering. It wasn't until the second and third shots that the American dream turned into a chaotic, bloody mess in the back of a Ford. But the real storyteller twist? The suspect, Lee Harvey Oswald, gets caught in a movie theater. But 2 days later, while the police are moving him, literally holding his arms, a guy named Jack Ruby just walks up and deletes the only witness. It was the ultimate glitch in the Matrix. It turned a tragic murder into a 60-year-old rabbit hole that we're still falling down. Indira Gandhi. Indira was the Iron Lady of India. She was brilliant, she was ruthless, and in 1984, she was in deep trouble. She had just sent the military to storm the Golden Temple to root out militants. This was big. Yet, this did not go over well with the Sikh community. Her intelligence chiefs were screaming at her, fire your Sikh bodyguards. It's a security risk. But Indira had a storyteller ego. She wanted the world to see her as a leader above petty religious divides. She even refused to wear a bulletproof vest that morning because she thought it made her look bulky on camera for a scheduled interview with Peter Ustinov. On October 31st, she stepped out of her house into the garden. The sun was hitting the orange trees. It was peaceful. She saw 2 of her favorite guards, the Sikh ones, men who had protected her for 10 years. She smiled. She said, Namaste. And then Bant Singh pulled a .38 revolver and shot her 3 times. While she was falling, the other guard, Satwant Singh, stood over her and emptied a 30-round magazine from his Sten submachine gun. Think about that. She wasn't killed by a foreign spy or a hidden sniper. She was killed by the guys who knew how she liked her tea. It's a chilling reminder that the person holding the door for you is also the person best positioned to put a bullet in you. Julius Caesar. On March 15, 44 BC, Julius Caesar walked into a Senate meeting at the Theater of Pompey in Rome, completely unaware that almost everyone around him had already decided he wouldn't walk out. As he took his seat, a senator named Tullius Cimber approached him with a petition, and within seconds, other senators surrounded him under the excuse of support. Then it turned. Cimber grabbed his toga, another senator struck first, and suddenly blades were coming from every direction. Caesar tried to resist at first, even catching one attacker's arm, but there were too many. Around 60 conspirators had surrounded him, and he was stabbed again and again, about 23 times in total. At some point, he saw familiar faces among them, including Marcus Junius Brutus, and that's when he stopped fighting. In the middle of the Senate floor, surrounded by men he trusted, Caesar collapsed and bled out within moments. What started as a political meeting turned into a coordinated execution, and in a matter of seconds, the most powerful man in Rome was gone. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, June 28, 1914. Sarajevo. This whole day was a comedy of errors. A group of Serbian nationalists, basically a bunch of angry John Wicks, had a plan to kill the Archduke. Assassin number 1 fails to pull his gun out. Assassin number 2 throws a bomb, misses the car, and blows up a bunch of people behind them. He then tries to kill himself by swallowing expired cyanide and jumping into a river. That was only 4 inches deep. He just ended up vomiting and getting arrested. The Archduke should have left. Any sane person would have left. But no, Franz Ferdinand decides to go to the hospital to visit the people injured by the bomb. Now for the twist. His driver gets lost. He takes a wrong turn onto a narrow street. He tries to put the car in reverse, but the engine stalls. And out of all the streets in all of Sarajevo, the car stops dead right in front of a deli where Gavrilo Princip, one who failed to pull the gun out, currently eating a sandwich and feeling like a loser. Princip looks up, blinks, sees the Archduke stuck in a stalled car 3 feet away, puts down his lunch, and changes history. 2 shots. That's it. The first shot hit Sophie in the abdomen. The second shot hit the Archduke in the neck, severing his jugular vein. As his wife slumped over, the Archduke reportedly cried out, "Sophie, Sophie, don't die, stay alive for our children." They both died within minutes. Millions of lives ended because a driver didn't have GPS and a teenager happened to be hungry at the right time. Benazir Bhutto, the first woman to lead a Muslim nation 2007. Benazir Bhutto. She was the daughter of the East, just come back from years of exile, and the energy in Pakistan was on peak, but it was also incredibly dangerous. She had already survived 1 massive suicide bombing the literal day she arrived. Most people would have taken the hint and stayed in a basement. Not Benazir. On December 27th, she's leaving a massive rally in Rawalpindi. She's inside a bulletproof white SUV. She's safe. The doors are locked. The glass is thick. She just needs to drive away. But then, she decides to do the politician thing. She stands up through the sunroof to waving to supporters. Just for a second, just to show she's not afraid. But gunman fires 3 shots. At the moment, a man standing next to the car revels himself. He was a suicide bomber. The blast was so powerful, it literally rocked the entire neighborhood. It's the ultimate tragedy of the hero's gesture. If she had stayed 6 inches lower, she'd likely be alive today. But in politics, those 6 inches are the difference between a leader and a martyr. Abraham Lincoln. The Civil War's over. Lincoln is exhausted. He just wants to watch a play called Our American Cousin and laugh at some bad jokes. He's sitting in the presidential box at Ford's Theater. Now, you'd think the guy who just ended the bloodiest war in American history would have a small army guarding the door, right? Nope. Only a bodyguard named John Frederick Parker. Parker's one job was to stand outside the box, but he got bored. He wanted to see the play, so he left his post and went to a nearby tavern to grab a drink. Now man of the match, John Wilkes Booth. Booth wasn't just a random guy. He was a famous actor. He walked right into the theater, everyone knew him. So nobody stopped him and snuck into the box while the audience was laughing at a punchline. 1 shot to the back of the head. Booth then jumps from the balcony onto the stage, breaks his leg, shouts something in Latin, and limps away like a drama queen. It was the most theater assassination in history, and it only happened because a guy named Parker really wanted a beer. Saddam Hussein. After the fall of Baghdad in 2003, Saddam Hussein disappeared completely. For months, no one knew where he was. While U.S. forces searched across Iraq, Saddam was hiding in rural areas near Tikrit, constantly moving between safe houses and relying on a small network of loyalists. But by December, that movement stopped. He was found in a place that didn't match his image at all, a small underground hideout later known as a spider hole. It was a narrow, concealed pit dug into the ground, just deep enough for a person to lie inside, covered with a lid and dirt to blend into the surroundings. On December 13, 2003, U.S. forces closed in on the location. When they opened the hiding spot, Saddam was pulled out without resistance. Disoriented, unshaven, and armed, but choosing not to fight. The man who once controlled an entire country was now being lifted out of a hole in the ground. After his capture, he was held in custody and later put on trial by an Iraqi court for crimes against humanity. The proceedings lasted for months, but the outcome was never really in doubt. He was sentenced to death by hanging. On December 30, 2006, Saddam was taken to the execution chamber. A noose was placed around his neck, and within moments, the trapdoor opened beneath him. Just like that, the rule he held for decades ended in a controlled, silent execution. Not on a battlefield, not in power, but at the end of a rope.